Fancy intro music, yeah! Woo! Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel where today is the start of a new month. It's actually the second day of that new month, which means that we've got to start the month off right. And that always means doing a crew video. So we're going to be taking a look at our bad crew video series that is now starting to include good crews on the wrong ships. And today we're going to have a mix of both. I figured that, I really enjoyed the format of the last video. And sure, it's fun to look at some crews that are just awful, but at the same time, it's good to build off the knowledge that we gain to put out good crews. And sometimes we have good crews that go on the wrong ship, and we're going to talk about why, how, and everything in between in this video with a few different examples. Are you excited? Well, you should be, because we're starting off here with our good buddy Lost and Found and Skybull, who both have good crews on their ship. So you've got a Saladin here against a D4, and that D4 is running what I would typically call a very, very common build against Enterprises or ISS Jellies on an Enterprise. So here's what you're running into for the D4. So we're going to sort by group and our officers, and let's get into the fun and the action. So you see Kirk as captain there, and most of you know how Kirk works. Kirk starts morale. That's the big benefit of having Kirk on your ship. His officer ability is a chance to spawn morale. Now, even mine at tier 3, which ready to go to tier 4, but just haven't upgraded because of the cost of experience points, is a 70% chance for 2 rounds. Now that goes up to 80%, etc., etc. Morale is something that a ship can use. There are some ships that use that ability, such as the Enterprise, and then there are officers that use that ability off of, say, TOS Uhura, and then you've got Spock and things like that. D4 obviously is not set up for that right here. It's Marcus, Kirk, Khan. That is something that you would put on an Enterprise. In fact, I have loaded that out on my Enterprise several different times. Marcus giving you that shield piercing you need to take down those explorers, and then Khan building criticals because you get a bonus with critical damage. Depending on where your research is at, that can be anywhere from 180% to 300%. So that is a good crew, but on the wrong ship. And then I wanted to talk about the one that Lost and Found is using because it's very interesting and a lot of people don't use this. This is Krell, Mara, and Kang. This is the helmet crew. And you don't see these thrown out very often, so I figured we'd take this moment to talk about them. So you have Mara as captain, which is IC Analyst. When fighting interceptors, increases the weapons damage of the ship by 20%. Now, obviously, we have synergy here, so that's going to increase. I'd say this for Lost and Found. I don't find that Mara is a very good captain because that weapons bonus is not a huge boost, though I guess everything on a Saladin can count. We are still talking about a very minimal boost to the ship. Then we get Kang, which you have Dahar Master at the start of the battle. Kang has an 80% chance of dealing a hull breach, and this is still incorrectly labeled. I'm pretty sure Gregor has covered that several different times on Discord, but yeah, still that doesn't work exactly how it reads. And then the Blood Oath at the start of the battle increases the accuracy by 40%. So this is where Kang is running an accuracy loadout. So this Saladin is obviously geared for fighting other interceptors, particularly fighting against D4s and Saladins. And then you have Wife of the Dahar. So here's an issue where we have nothing starting a hull breach on this ship. So as long as the ship has a hull breach, decreases its dodge by 30%, which is also an anti-interceptor type loadout, but there's nobody to start hull breach. So that's a problem with this build. And then we get to this one right here, which is Krell. This is a Federation. So this is fine. So basically Lost and Found said, I want to fight Saladins. I want to beat Saladins, and this is how I'm going to load them out. An anti-Federation officer and then anti-interceptions. That's okay. I wouldn't say it's the best because I'd probably rather have, unless that Krell is maxed, which I'm going to assume that his Krell is not maxed at level 31. I'd rather have Gorkon there to give me the hull breach I need for Mara. But overall, it's an interesting crew that I want to talk about because we don't see it very often. Very few people use the helmet crew, so that's why we spent 4 minutes talking about one log. Next up, we got my buddy No One Shall, and this is not necessarily a bad crew, but it is a crew in the wrong spot. So you've got Spock on here, and we always talk about Spock doesn't go on the Enterprise, and I do also include this one because this Spock typically is only for base defense. Now he can be, if he's high level, useful against anti-critical builds. But the odd thing about TOS Kirk is, as you can see here in the background, the Prosper ability, when fighting players, as long as the ship has morale, TOS Spock decreases the critical hit damage of the bonus or critical damage bonus of the opponent's ship by 50%. Now, obviously, this scales up based on your tier of that officer. The problem with that is the actual anti-critical officer is TOS Uhura. So Spock is taking out the bonus. If you look at TOS Uhura, which somehow we got shoved up to the top of the screen again. So if we come down and look at TOS Uhura, which I have at tier 3, you'll see that her captain's ability when fighting players as long as the ship has morale decreases the opponent's critical hit chance by 10% without synergy. With synergy, you essentially have negated criticals generally. Now, you can eventually, after long battles, get above that percentage mark, but that's going to stop the criticals early on and tends to be more effective because PvP battles are shorter than running TOS Spock. And here's where you run into an issue. If you're not running into another ship like an Enterprise that's running a critical build, which no one is not, the fighter coming against No One Shall is actually running the build that you see me run all the time, which is TOS Kirk, TOS Uhura, and Marcus. That is a DPS-laden anti-explorer build for an Enterprise. It's probably become the most popular build loadout for an Enterprise if you have a Marcus at least tier 4. And that's why this Marcus laid out is better and able to beat that Spock one, even though Spock is not a bad officer. And there is a way that you can load this out for it to be useful, but it's very particular about how that crew has to load out. It's an anti-critical build, and that's not what you end up facing. So you died. And that happens. But still interesting to see some of these officers out in the field that we've not seen before. Now we're getting into just a straight up, this is bad. Okay, this is, we got two videos or two clips of officers that aren't necessarily bad, but they're different and they're good to talk about to learn how they work. Now we just get into this is not correct realm at all. Now, I know the OO Alliance, obviously I've been with them for like 2 years, and they actually popped me off a node with this. So I had to call them out because you've got DJ Aoki, Carol Marcus, and then, of all people, Livis. So let's talk about it. Livis's secondary ability is a 40% chance, a 40% boost to hull health. Now that's my tier 3. Obviously, this is another scaling feature to a battleship. So technically it is right here, but that's such a small, and we talk about this all the time, it's a base improvement, it's a base percentage add-on. Not really a big deal. Not really a good card. But it does work, it's just not good. Let's move on to the Captain's Chair, which is a very interesting card. Carol Marcus. Applied Science when defending. This player obviously attacked my minor to clear it out. When defending a battle against a player, decreases weapons damage by 40%. This can be, semi-useful if there's some synergy there, but still not the best, especially if you're attacking. There's no point to the Captain's Maneuver at all. Then Weapons Expert increases the weapons damage by 30%. This is another mislabel. It's actually better than 30%. Still not huge, but it is better than what's displayed on my tier 3. And then finally, DJ Aoki, which is another mislabeled officer. Still, to this day, Scopely, fix your label maker, hire an intern, and not pay them because they're an intern to fix this. Beginning of each round, if the opponent is burning, DJ Aoki decreases the opponent's armor, shield deflection, dodge by 250%. No, it doesn't. Actually increases yours, so it's increasing your mitigation, just like Zal works, just like 5 of 10 works. But the key is you need burning. Ain't nobody starting burning. My poor little Antares was not burning the day that this Bortus came by and struck me down. It wasn't. What happened? What happened? This is a bad crew, just straight up bad. Livis is not very effective. Carol Marcus makes no sense, especially as a PvP leader where you're attacking. And then DJ Aoki has nobody even starting him up, so he's completely pointless. So, bad Bortus loadout. Bad. It's okay, though. We learn from that because, if you have Livis and you don't know that base number is so small, then you're just going to run it out and be like, well, what is this? Why is it not really helping me? And unless you actually know why, well, you run out there with stuff. And that's what happens. We did the same thing. Go watch some of my early videos where I've got, Green Scotty on a North Star talking about how his 20% hull boost is amazing. Back in the day, it probably felt like that, but it's not. So let's move on to our final one of the day. And we've got another D4 going against an Enterprise. So this is Red Squirrel with QR. and running another typical build you've seen me run on Enterprises a lot. Kirk, Khan, Zhao. Zhao's at least tier 4, getting those mitigation numbers boosted up. Very, very useful. Combines very well with Kirk's officer stat growth ability too, with him as captain. So it's a good, you know, PvP run if you have an Enterprise. Probably what I would say, like if you have Enterprise 2 now, and there are people who are getting second Enterprises, it'd be like PvP Enterprise number 2. But let's talk about this D4, which is loaded out curiously, but some interesting cards again. So you're going to start off with some Romulans here with Kumak as captain. Kumak is disciplined. At the beginning of each round, increases the stats of all officers on the bridge by 5%. This is actually a useful ability when you have synergy. You've seen me run Kumak as captain with, you know, Nero and Vimit in terms of early starter sets. You've seen it with Vimit, Kumak, and Giorgio. Can be useful in some lower level runs, but here we have no burning for the Watch the World burn, which is even in the name of the ability. That there's no burning here, so you're losing that secondary ability, which is a mitigation change. One of the first officers you get in the game that actually does some form of mitigation adoption or change option, whatever we want to use words that don't make sense. So not really being helped here by what is on the side. Now what is on the side? We have another Romulan, one that actually has hair and ears. It's not Severus, it's Lennar. Now what Lennar does is a bonus against Klingon ships. It's very rare to see Lennar out in the field because you don't see a lot of anti-Klingon loadouts. Even if you're fighting D4s, people tend to go for the mitigation run using something like a Kang. So this Lennar is doing nothing here. It's not necessarily a bad crew in and of itself. It's simply not providing synergy to help improve Kumak's captain's ability, which can be very useful in terms of buffing your stats. And, you know, unless it's a maxed one, you're probably not getting much of a bonus against other Klingons anyway in terms of attack. You see, mine's rank 3 with a 75% bonus. Not that good. And even if it was a 300% bonus, still a little bit low compared to some of these others that can get to 500% like Merrick and Krell. So now we get the final officer, which is probably the most confusing of the bunch for me. Which, come on down. Where are you? We've got like 135 officers now, so we're sorting through where they're all at is becoming more and more of a process. Right here, Rima. So if you look at Rima's officer ability is a bonus to critical chances when the ship has a hull breach. So not necessarily a bad idea to run this type of thing if you're running the full self-hull breaching berserker type run, but by itself literally does nothing. It can technically benefit you if your opponent is running a hull breach setup with, say, Gorkon or Lorca. But that's not happening here. Still, it's not something that you would see randomly running by itself as a side card. Not typically a good card by itself, which is something that we see here. Obviously not helping out because the D4 gets waxed. And then captain's ability, which he's not the captain, but just to mention it, at the start of each round, if the ship had a hull breach, increases the damage to the ship by 40% this round. So it can make make some sense if you're fighting it. If, say, this Enterprise was running Gorkon, Kirk, Khan, then maybe they could have helped a little bit, but still better loadouts that you could have run. So in today's video, we did a mix. We did some good, some bad. Hopefully you learned a little bit. If you did, smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Live long and prosper, everybody. Celebrate and enjoy Pride Month, and we will see you throughout the month and on Twitch for videos, content everywhere, because we love Star Trek and we're nerds. Also, the trading card game has got some new updates. Check it out if you're into TCG and you're a big nerd. If you're not into trading card games, be into it anyway because I'm helping make it. So, love y'all. Bye-bye. Video went long. An even better outro than the intro. Yeah! Woo!